In today's notes, we're going to be solving radical equations, so an equation that has a radical in it. So let's just think a little bit. What would you do to solve each equation? So to solve x plus 2 is equal to 6, because it's plus 2, to undo it, we're going to do its inverse, which is subtract 2 from both sides. So I'm going to put subtract 2 from both sides. All right, if I have 5x is equal to 20, what would I do? Well, it's 5 times, so to undo it, I'm going to divide both sides by 5. So I'm going to say divide by 5, and I'm not going to write from both sides. If I have x squared is equal to 4, now we did this in the last unit, what did we do to solve this equation? We then took the square root of both sides of the equation. So whatever we do to both sides. So in this one, we are going to solve it, when I have a radical, I am going to square both sides of the equation. All right, so when we subtract 2, that leaves us with x on the left. When we divide by 5, that leaves us with x. When we take the square root, we have an x. And when we square both sides, it's going to give us an x on this. So if you think about it, if I have the square root of x squared, that means the square root of x times the square root of x. And that is, when we do the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, the answer is 2. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3, the answer is 3. Well, the square root of x times the square root of x, the answer is going to be x. So when we square the square root, we get an x. All right, so let's use this to solve these examples. So to solve both sides, I am going to square both the left as well as the right. When I square a squared, I get a, and then I get 49. So we can check it by putting 49 back in here, and the square root of 49 is 7. So over here, I'm going to square both sides, and when I do, I get the square root of c squared is equal to negative 4 squared. And when I do that, on the left, I get c, and on the right, I get 16. So check it out. When I put 16 in, I get the square root of 16. Oh, wait. The square root of 16 is positive 4, not negative 4. So what that tells me is that 16 did not work. So actually this answer is going to be no solution, because it didn't check when it gave us the answer. And we'll talk about that in this next step right here. So when solving radical equations, extraneous solutions can be created when squaring both sides. And what that means is what happens right here. When we squared both sides, we got an answer which was close but didn't check. So an extraneous solution is one that will not check. So it does not check out right there like that. It is a good idea to check solutions always, but it's especially important when solving square root equations, because extraneous solutions happen a lot. To solve an equation involving a radical, we're going to have to isolate the radical first, so get it alone. Then we're going to square both sides of the equation. So for example here, example 2, the radical, so here's my radical here. You see here's my equals. So my radical is alone on one side, so it's already isolated. So once it's isolated, then I'm going to square both sides. And so let's look and see what happens when I take 5x minus 1 and square it, and then square that 3. When I square this, what happens is the 5x minus 1 then comes out. So the square undoes the radical and brings out whatever's inside of it, and then is equal to 9. I'm going to finish up by then adding 1 to both sides and getting 5x is 10, then divide both sides by 5 and get that x is equal to 2. So check it out. Let's put a 2 into the original. So 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 minus 1 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3, and then 3 is equal to 3, and that does check. And I'm going to circle that up as our answer. So end of video.